The governor and top Republicans have made no secret of their intentions to dismantle the state's elections and ethics agency, the Government Accountability Board. The GAB was created in 2007 to be a nonpartisan watchdog with the ability to investigate corruption. But the GAB has angered Republicans, in no small part by signing off on the John Doe investigation of alleged coordination between Governor Walker's campaign and conservative advocacy groups. Common Cause of Wisconsin will hold a community forum on the future of the GAB tomorrow night in Wausau. And Common Cause Executive Director Jay Heck joins us now from our Madison affiliate, WKOW-TV. Jay Heck, it's good to have you back on the program. So let's talk about the future of the GAB. Given today's political realities, what do you think the future holds?
Well, you know, the Republican leadership and Governor Walker, as you mentioned, have made no secret of the fact that they want to replace the GAB with something more partisan, something more that they will be able to have more influence over and control over. And that really defeats the purpose of the GAB, which, as you know, was set up following the legislative caucus scandal of 2001-2002, where the top legislative leaders of both political parties were criminally charged with felony misconduct in public office. And the State Elections Board, a partisan entity, and the State Ethics Board at that time failed utterly to investigate or do anything to stop the corruption in the Capitol. And so when the GAB was established 5 years later in 2007, it had unanimous support in the legislature, virtually unanimous support. Only 2 Democrats in the Assembly voted against it. Every Republican, including Robin Vos and Scott Fitzgerald, supported the nonpartisan GAB. So these charges that the GAB has somehow been less than doing its job have been repudiated by a recent Legislative Audit Bureau report, which said that they were doing exactly as they're supposed to do. They've done a great job, and I think that's the problem. The Republican leaders want to be able to control the outcome of the decisions by the GAB, and it's part of a larger plan to do away with things like the Legislative Audit Bureau and a number of other entities, the John Doe law, so that they can have more control. This is all about raw political power.
So you're not concerned about the fact that the GAB was involved in the John Doe, an investigation that now appears to be at a dead end. You're not concerned about recent emails that purportedly show a former member of the GAB taking perhaps a less than partisan position on the investigation. That didn't bother you in terms of what the work that the GAB did?
Keep in mind that the Government Accountability Board, which is comprised of 6 retired judges, voted unanimously to authorize an investigation into possible illegal campaign coordination between Governor Walker's recall campaign and outside groups. That was the law on the books at the time, and it was a unanimous decision. And I think what people sometimes forget is that it was 2 Republican and 3 Democratic district attorneys and a Republican special prosecutor. So it wasn't a partisan witch hunt. This was something that the GAB is supposed to do. One of the things that they were charged with doing in 2007 was being able to initiate investigations independent of the legislative leadership okaying them. That was the reason why the GAB was created, so that it would have some distance and independence from the legislative leadership. And now, Robin Vos and Scott Fitzgerald are trying to take control of it again.
Do you feel that there's anything you and others who support the current configuration of the GAB can do to stop it? You've got this community forum in Wausau tomorrow night. Are you trying to sort of gin up public support for this, much in the way it happened with the controversy over the state's open records law?
Absolutely. Keep in mind that there are 24 Republican legislators that were in the legislature in 2007 that are there now. They're going to have to reverse their vote and vote for something less than a nonpartisan independent GAB. We think there's a possibility that we could muster enough votes in the state Senate in particular to stop this. And I think citizens, just as they reacted to the assault on the open records law and just as they've reacted to the assault on things like the Legislative Audit Bureau, are beginning to take notice of this. And I think there will be a popular uprising, if you will, letting legislators know that this isn't acceptable. This isn't in the tradition of Wisconsin to have complete hyper-partisan control of the agencies in state government, and I don't think the citizens are going to stand for it.
Are you optimistic?
Well, it's always tough given the political configuration in Madison, but no one really expected that the open records attempts would be pushed back, and they were. So I am optimistic, and more than that, I'm hopeful. It's something we need to do.
Jay Heck is the head of Common Cause of Wisconsin. We appreciate your time. Thanks very much for being with us today.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it.
When we come back, Governor Walker and the 1%. Not that 1%. We'll explain.